Hi, welcome back to Money, Money, Money. With us is Priti Rathi Gupta, who's the founder of LXME, India's first financial platform dedicated exclusively for women. And we've been talking about so far, how it is important to plan for some of the key life stages for women and why particularly for women. Okay, now let's talk about another subject, which is, careers. How do you do better? How do you progress, as fast as your male counterparts? And Priti, I don't have to spell it out, but I think anybody would know about this gender pay disparity, right? The gap that exists. For a woman, is it important to also negotiate salaries and promotions? How do they do it? And, does it work?
Sumera, I think, the Gen Z is a great inspiration for all of us, because I think for them, there is no gender bias, especially for girls and for women in their head. I think what we've so far seen is that women, there's huge amount of self-doubt, right? There is this, terminology which we use very often when we're mentoring women, which is know your worth. You should know what your counterparts in the industry or within the organization earn. We rarely talk about money. We will not ask these questions. We will not find out. We will not come to the table. And most importantly, I feel even before coming to the table, raise your hand to say, if this is an opportunity that is opening up, then I'm ready to take this on. I think we sort of discount ourselves even before, and we say, maybe I'll not be good enough. Maybe I will not be able to do it. So I think, first of all, get rid of all of that self-doubt and then come to the table. It's very important to really, come to the table and talk about, negotiate about your packages, salary, ESOPs these days, whatever it is that includes or makes up your package. I have a very recent example. My very young son was applying for a job somewhere, and they asked him, how do you justify your salary? And he said, these are the 4 things that I can use, and I can tell you this is the value that I'm creating. The first thought in my head was that had there been a woman, it would probably, she would find it very difficult to do this. So I think really laying out very logically and saying what is the value you're creating or bringing to the table. So raising your hand, knowing your worth, and really coming to the table to really talk about it and negotiate.
Okay. And, another area in the corporate life where, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, things are changing, where women get a little bit left behind is networking. Is it a double-edged sword, and how do you go about it?
I don't know why it is called a double-edged sword. I think networking is a must. Typically in Western economies, we actually see that, for example, there are, a lot of the countries, Thursdays are meant for networking within the industry, within your organization, which we as a country, I don't think really encourage organization-wise, where there's no differentiation between men and women. Networking is a very, very important tool, and it is a must for women. I think the reason we lag behind is because we multitask. There is the household responsibility. So we are, at the end of the day after work, it's more like we're more keen to say, okay, let's go back home, because there's responsibility there also. I think the fact that we are multitaskers, I think managing time and really keeping time aside for networking within your industry is very important. When I say know your worth, how would you even know if you're not really going out there and talking to a lot of people? There's also a lot of benefit of networking in terms of upskilling, understanding what is new within the industry, making those connections. And I think what I've really found in the networking space, something that's very valuable, is the ability to connect to mentors, the ability to be a mentor to mentees. I think this is a very, very enriching part of life, which we women shy away from. So I hugely, sort of recommend and encourage women to really go out there and make time for networking.
Okay, and Priti, you're an entrepreneur yourself. There are many others who will probably be first-generation entrepreneurs. Some of them looking at startup, funding issues. What is it that you'd like to tell them?
Well, I think first of all, when you become an entrepreneur, you leave the gender at the door. You, as a woman, you yourself need to remove that thought completely that, okay, I'm going in as a woman or I'm raising money as a woman. There will be times when on the other side, there will be questions about, how will you manage? What if you get married? What when you have children? I think those questions are becoming lesser and lesser because a lot of women have really proven, their mettle when it comes to becoming an entrepreneur. But I do think that the entire ecosystem, and there is a lot happening, right? You have a lot of funds that are allocated now for women founders. For example, Lakshmi is right now part of a Google accelerator, which is for women founders, where they've shortlisted 20, startups which are founded by women, led by women founders. So there's a lot that's happening in the ecosystem that you should make use of. I think the most important sort of piece here is that the stereotype that industries have created, whether it is you're a woman or, how will you do this? Or if you're a certain age, do you have a male co-founder? The tech person needs to be a male all of that is very fast and very quickly dissipating. But when you go out as an entrepreneur, it's as much your responsibility to prove that, to come to the table for that, to assert that. And if you've got funding to really, make them sort of really prove to your investors that there is no difference when it comes to a man or woman when, once they turn entrepreneurs or run businesses.
Okay, Priti, just one more question since we have a little bit of time. Any practical tips besides all that we have spoken about? Any practical tips you want to leave us with for women?
Absolutely. I think, this is something that we do day in, day out, right? And I think the first important thing that we tell women, especially when it comes to finance or money management, is begin by building safety nets for yourself. They are very important. We as women we are not risk averse, but we are very risk aware. I think the minute we have safety nets created, it increases our ability to take that leap, to jump higher, to get into maybe newer asset classes that actually give us that, the sort of returns that we ought to get for all our financial goals. Second is discipline. One of the things that I see very often is that women do start that journey, but say you've put money into an asset class which is very volatile, whether it is equities or gold, you tend to get very shaken up. So once you've decided that this is where, you've put your money, essentially all asset classes, for example, equities are meant to be long-term investment asset classes, then just keep that discipline. If it's an SIP that has to be done, just keep that discipline of doing it. Cut out all the noise around you. Markets are falling, markets are rising, all of that, right? There's a lot of noise. Third, I think women need to know that there are at least 2 or 3 goals, financial goals, that they need to have control over. I see in a lot of families, whether it's between a husband and wife or between, a family where the daughter is earning, these decisions are completely left to the partner, which is fine if you found a middle path. But at least when it comes to your retirement and emergency funds, these are something that you should own, because this is about your financial security. And I think fourth is just keep it simple. I think there is a lot of fear around money management, taking financial decisions. There is a very, very simple way of doing it. Today, within Lakshmi, we say even within mutual funds, your equity, debt, and gold mutual funds, you can make a very effective financial plan added by just enough insurance. So I think these are the typical, the 4 very strong sort of practical tips that we give out and that I'm happy to share.
Priti, thank you very much for joining in. Always a pleasure. And, for everybody who's been watching, I hope this has been useful for you. We're going to wind up, but do stay tuned. The news continues with CNBC TV 18.